Backstage at the Grand Talent Show, the air buzzed with excitement, nerves, and ambition. Bright lights swept across the stage as performers polished their routines, dressed in sparkling clothes and radiating confidence. In the corner, however, stood a boy who looked out of place. Eli, no older than 12, had no polished shoes or glittering outfit. His shirt was faded, his pants torn at the edges, and his bare feet pressed nervously against the cold floor. He clutched a small, worn photograph of his late mother, holding it as if it were his anchor in the storm of doubt surrounding him. Whispers rippled through the waiting area. Some contestants exchanged skeptical glances, murmuring about how he even got this far. To them, the boy seemed fragile, unprepared, too poor to belong in such a dazzling place. A few laughed under their breath, others pitied him, but no one truly believed he would be capable of standing under those blinding lights and facing the thousands waiting beyond the curtain. Eli kept his eyes down, trying to block out the voices, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He whispered a quiet promise to the photo in his hand, "For you, Mom." It was all he had, his courage drawn from the memory of her love. Though the world doubted him, Eli's spirit held steady. In that moment, he wasn't just a boy in ragged clothes, he was a son determined to honor his mother, no matter what waited for him on the stage. Eli's name was called, and the world seemed to freeze. The heavy red curtain drew back, revealing the vast stage bathed in golden light. Thousands of faces stared at him, and for a heartbeat, he couldn't move. The glare of the spotlights blinded him, the weight of expectation pressing down like a mountain. He could hear the faint murmurs from the audience, skeptical, dismissive, curious. To them, he was just a poor boy, barefoot and trembling, holding a microphone that seemed too big for his small hands. The judges glanced at each other, their expressions mixed with doubt and impatience. One leaned back in his chair, already convinced this performance would be forgettable. Another sighed, ready to give him only a few seconds before pressing the buzzer. Eli's throat tightened, fear threatening to choke him. For a moment, he thought about running off stage, escaping the humiliation before it began. But then, his hand brushed against the edge of the photo tucked in his pocket, and his mother's smile came back to him. He remembered her voice telling him that his gift was special, that his song could heal hearts if only he had the courage to share it. Eli took a shaky breath, closed his eyes, and let the first note escape. The sound was fragile at first, trembling like a bird learning to fly. But within seconds, it grew, clear, pure, and powerful. The auditorium fell silent. Every whisper stopped. The judges' skeptical eyes widened, struck by something they hadn't expected. Eli's voice filled the space like light breaking through the darkness. As Eli's song carried through the auditorium, the atmosphere shifted in a way no one could have predicted. His voice, so pure and haunting, told a story of pain and longing, but also of love that refused to die. Every note seemed to paint a picture, of a little boy who had lost so much yet still held on to hope. The audience sat frozen, their eyes fixed on him, as if afraid that even blinking might break the spell. One by one, emotions began to rise in the crowd. Mothers clutched their children closer. Fathers bowed their heads, remembering struggles of their own. The lyrics wrapped around the listeners like a gentle embrace, peeling away the layers of hardness people carried in their everyday lives. Strangers who had walked in with guarded hearts now felt tears burning their eyes. The judges, known for their tough and critical nature, were not immune. The kindest among them pressed her hand to her chest, her lips trembling as she listened. Another, famous for being cold and unfeeling, shifted uncomfortably before lowering his gaze, quietly wiping at the corner of his eye. It was as if Eli's song had broken through the walls they had spent years building. And yet, the boy on stage was unaware of the waves he was stirring. With his eyes closed, he poured every ounce of his soul into the music, his voice rising higher, echoing with the ache of loss and the strength of love. In that moment, he wasn't just singing. He was healing. When the final note left Eli's lips, the silence in the auditorium was deafening. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The sound of his voice still lingered in the air, as though the walls themselves were holding onto it, unwilling to let it go. Eli's chest heaved, tears welling in his eyes as he whispered into the microphone, barely audible, "This was for my mom." His voice cracked, and with it, the dam in the room broke. The audience erupted in thunderous applause, rising to their feet all at once. People cheered, clapped, and shouted his name, their voices carrying waves of encouragement. The boy who had stepped on stage with nothing now stood at the center of a storm of love and admiration. Eli covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed by emotions too big for his small body. Then, something extraordinary happened. One of the judges, the sternest and least sentimental of them all, pushed back his chair and walked toward the stage. The audience hushed, shocked at the unexpected movement. Eli froze, unsure of what was happening. The judge climbed the steps, and instead of offering only words, he bent down to the boy's level and wrapped him in a gentle embrace. "You reminded us tonight what true music is," the judge said softly, his voice trembling. "Your mother would be so proud." The crowd roared louder than before, their cheers echoing through the hall, as Eli cried into the embrace that felt like the approval he had long been waiting for. The applause seemed endless, but what followed changed Eli's life forever. After the embrace, the judges returned to their seats, their faces softened, transformed by what they had just witnessed. The host struggled to speak over the roar of the audience, his voice filled with awe as he announced that Eli would advance to the next round. But the story didn't end there. One judge leaned into his microphone, her eyes glistening. "Eli," she said warmly, "you don't just have a voice, you have a gift that can touch the world. And you deserve every chance to share it." She glanced at her fellow judges, and together they revealed something no one expected. They had decided to personally sponsor Eli's education, provide him with music training, and ensure that his future would be brighter than his past. The boy who had entered the competition with nothing but a photograph of his mother now stood before thousands, his tears mixing with a smile that shone brighter than the stage lights. For the first time in a long while, Eli felt hope wrapping around him like a warm blanket. The audience continued to cheer, but their noise was no longer just applause, it was a promise, an unspoken vow that this child would never again walk alone. Eli lifted his eyes to the heavens, whispering a quiet thank you, knowing his mother was watching. His song had not only brought tears but had also opened hearts, proving that kindness and compassion could turn sorrow into a miracle.